There's a plant with red stems crawling through the cracks in your driveway right now that contains more omega-3 fatty acids per gram than any other leafy vegetable on Earth. Not close, not comparable, more. It has 7 times the vitamin E of spinach, delivers 400 milligrams of alpha-linolenic acid in a single serving, and ancient physicians called it the plant that prolongs life and clears poisons. Ancient Greeks pickled its stems like olives. Medieval Europeans grew it in monastery gardens alongside their most essential crops. Traditional Chinese medicine considers it one of the 5 supreme healing vegetables. The lawn care industry spends $293 billion a year making sure you see it as a pest. In the ruins of a Greek settlement dated to 800 BC, archaeologists uncovered a storage jar. Inside, protected from air and moisture for nearly 3 millennia, they found seeds, tiny black seeds, each barely 1 millimeter across. Portulaca oleracea, the plant we now call purslane. These weren't scattered randomly among debris. They were stored deliberately, sealed carefully, protected like grain, like the foods that kept civilizations alive. By the 4th century BC, the botanist Theophrastus was writing specific cultivation instructions in his botanical texts, treating purslane not as a wild plant to be tolerated, but as a crop to be cultivated intentionally. The Roman Empire grew it from Britain to North Africa. Medieval monasteries maintained dedicated purslane beds. In Arabic medical texts from the 10th century, physicians prescribed it for liver disease, digestive disorders, and fever with such consistency that it became a cornerstone of their pharmacological system. This is purslane, the plant that solved a nutritional problem modern science didn't even know existed, and the one your neighbor pays $300 a season to eliminate. When the first European settlers documented purslane growing in Massachusetts in 1672, they assumed they had introduced it. Colonial hubris. Then archaeologists started finding seeds. In Kentucky, dated to 800 BC. In Ontario, dated to 1350 AD. In Arizona, dated to 1000 BC. Native Americans had been cultivating purslane for over 1,000 years before any European ship crossed the Atlantic. Indigenous peoples across the Americas grew it deliberately alongside squash, beans, and sunflowers. 2 populations separated by an entire ocean, who would never make contact for millennia, both reached the exact same conclusion when they encountered this plant. This isn't decoration, this isn't filler, this is essential. What did they recognize that we've been systematically trained to ignore? In 1992, researcher Artemis Simopoulos published a study that made traditional healers say, "We told you so," and made nutritionists recalculate everything. She analyzed purslane's fatty acid content. 100 grams of fresh leaves, roughly 1 serving, contained 300 to 400 milligrams of alpha-linolenic acid. That's omega-3. The same essential fatty acid found in salmon, in flaxseed, in the expensive supplements people buy at $40 per bottle. Purslane has more omega-3s than any other leafy vegetable researchers had ever tested. Not just a little more, 5 to 7 times more than spinach, 15 times more than iceberg lettuce. And unlike fish oil with its cholesterol and contaminant concerns, purslane delivers omega-3s with 0 cholesterol, 0 mercury, 0 heavy metals. The plant growing between the cracks in your driveway contains the same essential fatty acid cardiologists recommend for heart health, that neurologists link to brain function, that researchers associate with reduced inflammation. But that's just the beginning. The same analysis found purslane contained 7 times more vitamin E than spinach, higher concentrations of vitamin C than most citrus fruits, massive amounts of beta-carotene, glutathione, and antioxidants that protect cells from damage. When researchers compared purslane to kale, the vegetable everyone calls a superfood, purslane won across multiple nutritional categories. It delivers more total fatty acids than kale, more antioxidants than kale, better omega-6 to omega-3 ratio than kale, and it grows wild, requires 0 cultivation, survives drought, thrives in poor soil, and spreads itself without any human intervention whatsoever. You can pay $6 for a container of organic kale shipped 2,000 miles. Or you can walk outside and harvest the more nutritious plant growing in your yard for free. The disconnect is not accidental, it's engineered. Look at the numbers. The United States lawn care market reached $293 billion in 2024. Not million, billion. Americans spend more eliminating plants from their yards than the entire GDP of dozens of countries. The herbicide segment alone represents a multi-billion-dollar industry built on a single premise: uniformity. The perfect lawn contains one plant species, one color, one texture. Any deviation represents failure. Any biodiversity indicates neglect. Any plant offering actual nutritional value becomes a target for chemical warfare. Walk into any hardware store and examine the herbicide aisle. Product after product features purslane on the label, its distinctive red stems and succulent leaves marked with a red X. The visual language could not be clearer. This is the enemy. This is what you're fighting. This is what success looks like when it's dead. University Extension Services publish detailed guides on purslane control, recommending multiple applications of broadleaf herbicides, optimal timing for maximum plant death, strategies for complete eradication. The University of California's Integrated Pest Management Program categorizes purslane as a weed requiring management, offering chemical solutions specifically formulated for its destruction. Not once do these guides mention that purslane is edible. Not once do they acknowledge its omega-3 content. Not once do they suggest that having the most nutritious wild plant in North America growing in your yard might be valuable rather than problematic. This wasn't always the reality. In the 1800s, American seed catalogs sold purslane alongside lettuce, spinach, and other salad greens. Farmers cultivated it deliberately. In Europe, purslane remained a common food through both world wars, appearing in rationing cookbooks, grown in victory gardens when other vegetables became scarce. In France, pourpure dorée remained a standard ingredient in soups and salads through the 20th century. In Greece, andouille salad with olive oil and lemon juice stayed on restaurant menus. In Mexico, verdolagas with eggs and pork remained a breakfast staple. In China, stir-fried purslane with garlic continued as a traditional dish. The transformation of purslane from food to weed happened in America between 1945 and 1960, during the explosion of suburban development and the creation of the lawn aesthetic. Chemical companies that had produced explosives and poison gas for World War II needed new markets. They found it in lawn care. They manufactured herbicides. They manufactured fertilizers. They manufactured an entire industry built on the premise that nature, left to itself, is inadequate. That a healthy landscape requires intervention, requires products, requires control. They created the psychological framework that made purslane's presence in your yard a sign of failure rather than a sign of abundance. And they succeeded completely. Because here's what nobody mentions when they sell you that bottle of broadleaf herbicide. You're not just killing a weed. You're eliminating one of the first food sources available to pollinators each spring. Purslane produces tiny yellow flowers that bloom from May through September, providing nectar when bees and other pollinators desperately need it. Research has documented over 90 species of insects that depend on purslane as a food source. When you spray herbicide to eliminate purslane, you're not beautifying your landscape. You're creating a food desert for the creatures that pollinate 1/3 of the crops humans depend on for survival. You're also poisoning yourself. The herbicides marketed for purslane elimination don't disappear after application. 24D, one of the most common broadleaf herbicides, has been linked in multiple peer-reviewed studies to increased cancer risk, hormone disruption, and neurological effects. These chemicals don't stay where you spray them. They volatilize, they drift, they contaminate groundwater, they persist in soil. They appear weeks later in the vegetables in your garden, in the dust that enters your home, in the water your children play in. And you're paying for this privilege. The average American household spends $300 per year on lawn care products and services. 70 hours of labor annually maintaining grass that produces nothing. All to eliminate a plant that, if harvested instead, would provide free omega-3s, vitamin E, vitamin C, antioxidants, and essential minerals for 6 months out of every year. The economic absurdity would be laughable if the health consequences weren't so severe. But the science gets stranger. Beyond nutrition, purslane contains compounds that traditional healers recognized as medicinal for thousands of years. Modern analysis has identified why. The plant contains high concentrations of dopamine and noradrenaline, the same neurotransmitters your brain produces. It contains melatonin, the hormone that regulates sleep cycles. It contains glutathione, one of the body's most powerful antioxidants, at concentrations higher than almost any other plant. Traditional Chinese medicine classified purslane as a cooling herb that clears heat and eliminates toxins. Modern pharmacology confirms this wasn't metaphorical. Purslane demonstrates documented anti-inflammatory effects comparable to pharmaceutical NSAIDs. It shows antimicrobial activity against multiple bacterial strains. Studies have documented its ability to reduce blood sugar levels in diabetic patients. The ancient physicians who prescribed purslane for fever, for inflammation, for digestive disorders, for liver problems were not guessing. They were observing what worked. They were right without laboratories, without clinical trials, without peer review. They were right because they paid attention. And were wrong despite all our technology because we stopped paying attention to what the earth provides. Look at the mucilaginous quality of purslane when you cook it. That slight sliminess, that gel-like texture. Traditional cooks across multiple cultures recognize this as valuable. In Mexican cuisine, verdolagas adds body to soups and stews. In Greek cooking, purslane thickens sauces naturally. In Chinese cuisine, its mucilaginous quality provides a distinctive texture to stir-fries. Modern nutritionists now understand that this mucilage contains soluble fiber that feeds beneficial gut bacteria, supports digestive health, and helps regulate blood sugar. The very quality that makes some modern eaters dismiss purslane as slimy is the same quality that makes it therapeutically valuable. The modern palate, trained on processed foods and sweetness, rejects what the body actually needs. Here's the taste issue people fixate on. Purslane is sour, they say. It's lemony, it's tangy. Yes, that's citric acid and malic acid, the same compounds in lemons and apples. The sourness indicates the presence of vitamin C and organic acids that support cellular function. Young purslane leaves have a mild, slightly salty taste with a hint of lemon. Older leaves taste more pronounced. Both are valuable. The flavor profile pairs perfectly with olive oil, garlic, tomatoes, cucumbers, and feta cheese, which is why Mediterranean cuisines embraced it for millennia. It works in salads raw. It works sautéed like spinach. It works in smoothies where fruit masks any flavor you don't like. The question isn't whether purslane tastes good. The question is whether you're willing to adjust your palate for the most nutritionally dense wild plant you'll ever encounter growing without any effort on your part whatsoever. The practical application is immediate and obvious. If you have any outdoor space, you probably have purslane growing somewhere. If you don't see it yet, wait until late spring or early summer. It will appear. When it does, stop spraying. Let it grow. Harvest the tender stems and leaves when the plant is young and succulent before it flowers. Wash thoroughly, especially if it's from an area potentially exposed to contaminants. Add it raw to salads. Sauté it with garlic and olive oil like you would spinach. Blend it into smoothies with fruit. Add it to soups where its mucilaginous quality acts as a natural thickener. Make a traditional Mediterranean salad with purslane, tomatoes, cucumbers, red onion, feta cheese, olive oil, and lemon juice. The flowers are edible too, tiny yellow blooms that appear all summer long. Sprinkle them on salads. Add them to omelets. Use them as an edible garnish. They contain the same antioxidants found in the leaves with a mild, slightly sweet flavor. The seeds, when you let the plant go to seed in late summer, are also edible. Ancient Greeks ground them into flour for bread. Native Americans collected and dried them for winter use. The seeds are tiny, but they're abundant. One mature plant can produce 240,000 seeds. Let that number sink in. One plant, 240,000 seeds. That's not a weed trying to survive. That's a plant trying to feed you. But the lawn care industry doesn't want you to make that connection. They want you to see abundance as invasion. They want you to see resilience as a problem requiring chemical solutions. They want you to spend $300 eliminating what ancient civilizations recognized as precious. The herbicide industry's success is complete when people see purslane and feel revulsion. When the immediate response is, I need to kill that instead of I could eat that. When parents teach children that purslane is a weed while driving them to grocery stores to buy organic greens at $5 per container that contain less omega-3, less vitamin E, less antioxidants than the plant they just sprayed with poison at home. The irony would be perfect if it weren't so tragic, but something is shifting. Farmers' markets in progressive cities now sell foraged purslane, often at a premium, $4 to $6 for a small bunch of the same plant homeowners pay to eradicate. Whole Foods stocks purslane seasonally in produce sections. Restaurants in major cities feature it in salads and as a cooked green, charging $15 to $20 for dishes made from a plant you can harvest in your yard by the grocery bag. The same cultural tastemakers who dictate food trends are rediscovering what grandmothers from a dozen cultures never forgot. But the recognition grows too slowly. Every summer, millions of Americans spend hundreds of dollars and dozens of hours eliminating the most nutritious plant in their landscape to maintain an aesthetic standard that serves no purpose. The perfect lawn produces nothing. It sequesters no significant carbon, it supports almost no wildlife, it provides no food. It exists purely as a status symbol, a marker of conformity, a demonstration that you have resources to maintain something useless. Purslane, by contrast, is useful in every measurable dimension. It feeds you, it feeds pollinators. It improves soil by acting as a living mulch that reduces erosion. It indicates soil conditions, thriving in compacted soils where other plants struggle, telling you where your yard needs attention. It provides medicine in the form of omega-3s, antioxidants, and anti-inflammatory compounds. It costs nothing, it requires zero maintenance. It survives drought, flood, foot traffic, and herbicide applications that would kill most other plants. Purslane is one of the most resilient, adaptable, generous plants on the planet. And we're taught to hate it. This is what happens when corporations successfully colonize consciousness. When marketing shapes perception so completely that people actively work against their own interests while believing they're doing the right thing. The lawn care industry doesn't sell herbicides. They sell the idea that nature in its abundant generosity is your enemy, that fertility is a problem, that free nutrition is a weed, but you don't have to accept that programming. You can choose differently. You can choose to see purslane for what it actually is, a gift. A plant so determined to feed you that it grows in cracks in concrete, that survives in compacted soil where nothing else will, that produces 250,000 seeds from a single plant to ensure you never go without. Every purslane plant in your yard is a test. Will you recognize abundance when it appears unbidden, or will you reach for poison because that's what you've been trained to do? The answer determines what kind of future you're creating. One where humans spray billions of dollars of chemicals to eliminate free omega-3s while complaining about health care costs. Or one where humans remember what their ancestors knew across continents and centuries. That the earth provides, that food grows wild, that the plants trying hardest to feed you are often the ones you've been taught to destroy. The ancient Greeks knew, the Romans knew, the Chinese knew, medieval Europeans knew. Native Americans knew, traditional healers from a dozen cultures knew, your great-grandmother probably knew. The knowledge spans civilizations, crosses oceans, survives empires. The only question is whether you're ready to remember. Next summer, when those red stems with succulent leaves appear in your driveway cracks, in your garden edges, in the spaces between your vegetables, you face a choice. You can spray them. You can spend money and time and chemical exposure eliminating omega-3s, vitamin E, antioxidants, and centuries of human wisdom. Or you can grab a bowl, walk outside, and harvest. You can rinse them, add them to a salad, taste their lemony crunch, and feed them to your family while explaining that this is what food looks like when it's free. You can watch them return next year, unstoppable, offering themselves again. And you can accept, finally, what they've been trying to give you all along. Nutrition, medicine, resilience, and the revolutionary idea that maybe the most valuable things in life don't require permission or payment or PhDs to validate. Maybe they just require recognition. Maybe they require remembering that before grocery stores and supplements and pharmaceutical interventions, humans knew which plants kept them alive. They knew because the plants kept showing up, kept offering themselves, kept proving that the Earth's generosity exceeds our ability to destroy it. Purslane doesn't judge your confusion. It doesn't resent your decades of chemical warfare. It just keeps growing, keeps offering, keeps demonstrating that some gifts are so valuable they refuse to be erased. That some foods are so essential they'll grow through concrete to reach you. That red-stemmed plant in your driveway is not a weed, it's a promise. A promise that you don't have to depend on industrial agriculture, on expensive supplements, on foods shipped thousands of miles. A promise that abundance still exists, wild and free, waiting for the moment you remember how to see it.